Hello and welcome back to my philosophical and musical channel. So, the disputes. Philosophers like disputes and discussions, and one of the most significant disputes in 20th century took place between Derrida and Foucault, Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault. And this dispute itself unfolded in 1960s, and it was dedicated to the Descartes and his concept of deceiver, God deceiver, and insanity, and boundary of the mind and reason and rationality. You know this Cartesian plot about God deceiver or Malin evil genius in his reflections on the first philosopher. This philosophical doubt, this great doubt about madness and about existence of himself. And this doubt, this third experiment, completes the formula cogito ergo sum, as you know. In 1961, one of Foucault's major first books, named Madness and Civilization, A History of Insanity in the Age of Reason, in French it sounds Folie et de raison, Histoire de la folie à l'âge classique. And it was published in this work. In this work, Foucault showed that the attitude to madness had gone through various stages. And only in the 17th century that connect simultaneously with the formation of Western rationality, new European rationality, and people began to incarcerate madness in special shelters, in madhouses, which at the first stage weren't not just clinics, and not yet clinics, to tell the truth, but simply means to separate madmen, just like imprisonment, something like this. If we recall one of the most remarkable examples in the history of art, a painting by Raphael, The Transfiguration. It is the last work of Raphael. And if you remember, there is a figure of a mad boy. From the point of view of the whole composition, he is a very remarkable figure. And Friedrich Nietzsche compared his with Silenus from the Dionysian circle, and this Dionysian principle is the support for the divinity, for the divine, and for the soaring Christ, for this serenity and divinity of this figure. And its mad boy is something like basis, like ground, like source of divinity. And in the era of rationality, the attitude is clearly changing. Madness is no more than something given from above, and it scares all the people. In relation to the madman, there was fear, anxiety, which led to the fact that Foucault calls the great imprisonment in his major book, Madness and Civilization. He also shows this problem on an intellectual level. In the works of Descartes, the ancestor of modern rationalism, in his meditations we meet the figure of some madman, but he quickly discards it, and he turns it to dreams. He says, as you remember, that how could one deny that these hands and this whole body are mine? Unless I could compare myself to God, knows what kind of madman whose brains are so clouded by heavy fumes of black bile that they persistently tell them that they are kings, while they are beggars, or that they are dressed in purple when they are simply naked. Finally, that their heads are made of clay, or they are nothing but pumpkins or glass balls, and so on and so forth. But they are crazy. Descartes emphasizes that they are crazy, and I myself would seem no less crazy if I adopted at least some of their habits, says Descartes. However, we must take into account that I am a person who has a habit of sleeping at night and experiencing the same things in a dream. And the concept of dream is a very important concept for Descartes and for Foucault and Derrida too, by the way. So, for Foucault, it's important that Descartes abruptly ends that this is only dream, and this person who are doing something during their dreams, during their dreaming, they are just lunatics, they are crazy. It seems to him, to Foucault, that this is precisely the gesture of exclusion, imprisonment. That is, Descartes discards the insane, the madness, doesn't want to listen to them, and proceeds to the question of dreaming. And the dream is already his own, and it's easier for him to talk about it, especially since it seems like something normal. So all of us can sleep and see something like dreams. That's why Foucault says Descartes is a figure of an exclusion of madness. It's something like thought experiment. And for Foucault, this exclusion of madness by Descartes leads to a cogito that is more or less arbitrarily self-assured of its own rationality. After Descartes, rational thought, that's the mental activity and mental activity of a subject who wants to find the truth, and he is obeyed by this rationality to find this truth thanks to rationality, and only in this way. And he cannot be insane. It's absolutely impossible. And the beginning of the controversy was the report Cogito and the History of Madness read by Jacques Derrida at the invitation of Jacques Val at the Philosophical College on March 1963. And a few years later, in 1967, the text of the report became part of his book Writing and Difference. In his speech, Derrida protested the position of Foucault's book, according to which Descartes completely excluded the person of madman and excluded the possibility of insanity from thought as such. He is convinced that Foucault is misinterpreting the passage he mistook with the passage on radical doubt, and believes that Descartes is moving to the hypothesis of a dream, that I am dreaming and everything is in my dreams, as more radical than the hypothesis of insanity. And here is the great difference between Derrida and Foucault. Derrida thinks that dream is a crucial point of Descartes' view. And analyzing Descartes' text, Derrida distinguishes two phases in it, natural doubt and absolute doubt. Derrida connects the stage of natural doubt with Descartes' reflections on the illusory nature of dreams and deceptiveness feelings. In his opinion, Descartes doesn't exclude the situation of total illusion and doesn't shy away from the possibility of total deception, appealing to some kind of irreducible structure of truth. Any meaning, any idea of sensory origin is eliminated from the realm of truth. On the same basis, as insanity. So it's the dialectical opportunity of our knowledge, of the growth of our knowledge, you know. At the second stage, there is an exit from the phase of natural doubt and the hypothesis of an absolute insanity, of complete insanity, complete madness, with what a person can do on his own. It's impossible to cope, because according to this hypothesis, a person completely submits to an evil genius and cannot verify the reliability of the source of his knowledge. So, the madness is a root for our rationality, for Derrida. Well, I think for creative people it's something very significant, and maybe it's true. For example, for Beethoven, he wasn't so rational man, I think. And according to Derrida, the authenticity of the cogito achieved by Descartes is not just hidden from madness, but on the contrary, it's legitimized only by madness. Therefore, cogito is significant even for a madman. It's the part of every person. In this interpretation of Derrida, the act of cogito matters even if I is insane. That is so even if my thought is insane from beginning to the end. He shows that first, cogito implements the hyperbolic movement into the infinite, and only then neutralizes this movement in the system of argument. And I myself, my point of view, that Derrida has something very realistic in his views, because, of course, for creative people, as I have already said, it's very important to have this source of inspiration, and it cannot be only rational. But of course, rationality is also can be inspiring, of course, but it's not only one power for our creative work and for our knowledge too, I think so. Derrida shows that at the very peak, at the maximum of absolute doubt, cogito is insensitive to the opposition of reason and madness. Foucault timed his answer to the second edition of The History of Madness as an appendix entitled something like My Book and This Paper, This Fire, and in it he insists that Derrida deliberately removes from the Cartesian text everything that indicates the controllability of the appearance of evil genius. That's the indication that the situation with the deceiving God is something like thought experiment. It's a rational conscious experiment for Foucault. Whereas this exercise is carried out from the beginning to the end by a subject who doesn't allow himself to be taken by surprise of this deceiver, God deceiver. And in the face of an insidious deceiver, the reflecting subject doesn't lose his mind at all. But I am not sure that it's true, especially for the romantic poets and romantic composers such like Schubert or Schumann, by the way. So it's a discussion, it's an open discussion, I think. Okay, thank you for your attention. I hope it was something maybe useful for you. Or for me, just for me. Okay, all good to you, and see you in the next video. Bye.